Hello everyone and welcome to Deaf Culture and Community. This one is the first video presentation that we're doing in connection with this chapter. Right now, I really want to focus on discussing why it's important to learn about deaf culture. I also want to discuss why it's important to take the class and join the community and the benefits that you can get from it in the future. I want to give you an example scenario so that you understand a little bit more about what we're learning. So let's say a businessman goes to an Arab country and he realizes that they don't have any washing machines. So he decided that's a good opportunity to sell to them. So he starts advertising with these pictures and flyers. And here, I can show you a picture here. So you see that? So he starts advertising, and this businessman thinks that he'll be able to convince all of these people to buy these washing machines. So he's advertising, but it's not working. Nobody is buying them. He's confused. He thought that the picture was super clear. There's dirty pants on one side, picture of the washing machine, like you put them in, and then they're nice. It's a pretty clear concept, right? But here's the thing. It was misguided because of the difference in language. So here, in English, when you read from right to left. You see that the pants are dirty, and then you read from left to right. See, the pants are dirty and then they're clean. But in Arabic, it's the opposite way. You read from right to left. So you see that picture? It looks like you have these nice, clean pants. You put them in the washing machine, and now they're dirty. Who would buy that? Who would buy a machine that makes your pants dirty? The conflict. Here is another example. So let's say it's the same businessman, and he meets this person, and he starts advertising in the store. And it's a restaurant. So as the businessman is there, he grabs food, he's grabbing food with his hands, and he's getting all of these stares. Everyone's looking at him. He really feels like there's no reason for them to. He's confused. Well, it has something to do with his hands. Using your right hand is fine. You can do that to eat food or whatever, but your left hand is considered dirty. So in the Arabic culture, people really tend to use their left hand for going to the bathroom. It's just considered dirty. It's not the same way here in America. So in America, we use toilet paper. Over there, they don't. They use water, so it's just considered dirty. So when he went to grab food with his left hand, it made other people uncomfortable. So the same kind of issues with not understanding that culture with the washing machine, the other differences, he didn't understand the culture. And that's our tie-in to deaf culture. It's the same principles can be applied here. So maybe you want to become an interpreter, you want to work with deaf people, or any other thing. It's important to understand the difference in culture. Difference in tendencies, language, culture, community, interactions, and be able to have better relations with them. I also wanted to add this one that does have that they're not excuses. You can't say, oh, I can't do that because it's not part of my culture. Or all of these things are happening and say, oh, well, that's just not deaf culture. You have to make sure that you're not using that as an excuse. Now, there are some situations where that is acceptable, but not all. And I can give you a couple of situations where it's not acceptable. So for here, let's say that you're in an incredibly busy area and someone knocks into you. And you just look at them and say, oh, sorry, that's deaf culture, and walk away. that's not acceptable. Another way, you can tap a person on the shoulder and kind of let the nodes move so they know that there's someone trying to move around you. They can keep up with their conversation, it's fine. But you don't just bash into people and say, oh, that's deaf culture. Another example is, so let's say that you're in a dorm hallway and all of the doors are on the sides of the hallway, and there's a lot of deaf people who are laying in the bedrooms. The doors are open so they can talk to each other. And you see this woman who is walking and she's blocking the line of sight. Instead of trying to help her and what's happening, they just ignore her. So instead of trying to see the situation, she just kind of awkwardly walks around them. Yes, it is important in deaf culture. People don't tend to stand next to each other. They tend to stand across from each other because it's more comfortable to sign. But if you still have respect for people. If your legs are blocking the hallway or something, you still bring them in. That is still part of being respectful, regardless of the culture. So another example, maybe there's two deaf people who are driving at light. They're going to a party, they've been drinking, and as they're driving, they have the light on inside the car so that they can chat. And then another deaf person is walking on the side of the road, and they hit them, and they kill that pedestrian. So everything happens, let's say that they go to court. And their argument is, oh, well, I'm sorry, I'm young, but that's deaf culture to have the light on in the car. It's equal access because hearing people can see each other when they talk, so it's equal access to have the light. Maybe, but that's also not acceptable. When you're driving, it is your responsibility to be paying attention to the road. Yes, you can have a conversation, but it is still your responsibility to be driving on the road. Well, in that situation, there was alcohol involved as well, but it is important to recognize that when they're using their culture as just an excuse of, oh, sorry, that's just deaf culture. I want to be able to discuss these things open arm, and we can discuss and see what things are acceptable and what aren't. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the definition of community and culture. It is a very complex definition between the two of them, and the definition does tend to change over the years. So I can show you this picture. So you see that? What do you see? Well, there's two things that you can see in that, depending on what your perspective is. The first is seeing two faces, and the second one is to see a face in the middle of them. Which one is right? Well, that really depends. Really, it is both of them, but it depends on how you see it. If you focus on the two faces, then that's what you'll see. You don't care to see the face. Now, if you want to see the face, you can ignore the two faces, and now you can only see the face, and you can switch back and forth between them. It is the same concept for describing community and culture. So I'm going to talk about culture or community right now. So there's quite a few things that are involved with them, about 94, that have been changing and evolving over the years. So when we discuss, I'm going to bring up a couple of specific points to help show this example a little bit better. So it's the people who are involved in the community. So they have a shared language and they are involved in the community and discussing with them. They're there to support each other, help organizations run clearly. Even if they have different thoughts, they still intermix and work together. Maybe it's residential schools or hospitals, but they're around each other. It is also location-based of where services are, where they're running into each other or meeting each other in real world. That itself is a community. That's the definition. If you were to apply that to deaf community in the future, here's some examples of that. So community and culture are intertwined. They come together. If you don't have a community, you can't have a culture. If you don't have a culture, you can't have a community. They are intertwined. So what does culture mean? So it is a more complex topic, but in English we've got two things to discuss here. So first we're going to focus on one, which is the application of culture. So let's say that there are a group of people and they have tendencies. They tend to do certain things and they tend to believe certain things. Also included that is language. What language do they use? Also, again, what are their tendencies? What are their rules of engagement? Plus also, what are things that they highly value, their belief systems or politics, things of that nature. That can be passed down through generation and spread around. It also includes your identity. What do you identify as? You have all of these aspects. You can compare it to other cultures that you may be a part of. So that's the definition of community that we're going to be, that's the definition of culture we're going to be using going on in this course. So as you can see, we're going to expand on a bunch of different aspects of culture. On family, education, society, and many others. Language too. Right now we're really going to focus on language. We have language and grammar. Both of them are fine. So if you were to use this, then it has these two signs for language. One of them has a L, and one of them has a different hand shape. Using the one without the L has a little bit more deaf culture connected to it, because the L is representative of English. When you use the other hand shape, it's more ASL, it's more deaf culture. So in this one, in language, we have community, culture, and language. Here is a Venn diagram of how all of them interact. Altogether, what that means is that it's just setting up a system of rules that you follow and of other guidelines that happen. There's a variety of things. You'll see a lot of different hand shapes, a lot of different signs, and you can also see it in spoken language as well. You see letters that are followed by other letters, and that's the alphabet. That's important to a culture. Also, language changes over time. It changes and evolves, and that's fine. Like, for example, Latin is a dead language because it has no other outside influences. Everything else happens around it, but Latin doesn't increase, evolve, anything. It may eventually even just disappear. Also, language is used by generations and given to the next one. So, discussing language is important because of how it impacts culture and community. Here's that graph again. So now that we've seen how all three of these are interlapping, we can kind of study them a little bit separately, but again, I'm going to give you two examples. So in Maine, in that community, they have a lot of fishermen. So if you were to go up to Maine, you'd see lots of water, lots of areas. They also have a lot of strong fog in that area as well. So on the fishing boats, you can see the fog out on the water.